CBS News has confirmed that Lance Armstrong now admits using performance-enhancing drugs after denying it for more than a decade. The Justice Department reportedly is likely to join a lawsuit against Armstrong to recover government funding for his cycling team.
Last fall, the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency accused a seven-time Tour de France winner of running the most successful doping program in sports history. Agency CEO Travis Tigert told Scott Pelley on 60 Minutes Sports last week that Armstrong threatened anyone who challenged him.
Your investigation showed that there were personal threats made against riders who had decided to come clean. I wonder if there were any threats against you.
There were, Scott.
These threats came from where?
Emails, letters.
Anonymous.
Yeah.
Can you remember any of the lines from the emails or the letters?
The worst was probably putting a bullet in my head.
Did you take that seriously?
Absolutely. Turned it over to the FBI to investigate it, which they're doing.
Armstrong addressed the doping charges in a no-holds-barred interview with Oprah Winfrey on Monday. She joins us now live from Harpo Studios in Chicago. Oprah, good morning to you.
Hey, Gail.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Charlie. Hey, Nora.
Yeah, we are all excited to talk to you this morning, Oprah. You know, let's get started. He's denied for so long and so adamantly that he did not do this. Do you think that it was difficult for him to finally come clean to you?
Yes, I think the entire interview was difficult, and may I just say that we had agreed before this moment, before the interview, we had agreed that the terms of the interview and what was included in the interview, specifically what was included in the interview, would be left for people to make their own judgments about, and that I would not be discussing, or he would not be discussing or confirming. We agreed to that, and then by the time I left Austin and landed in Chicago, you all had already confirmed it. So I'm like, how did you all do that? We all agreed that we weren't going to say anything. So I'm sitting here now because it's already been confirmed. So here we are.
So this question, you prepared hard for this, both to get the interview and then to conduct the interview. Why do you think he did it? What was he looking to do? And did he confess, did he come clean in the manner that you expected?
I would say he did not come clean in the manner that I expected. It was surprising to me. I would say that for myself, my team, all of us in the room, we were mesmerized and riveted by some of his answers. I had prepared. I'd read the reasoned decision. I watched all of Scott Pelley's reports, 60 Minutes reports. I'd seen the Tyler Hamilton interview. I read Seven Deadly Sins. I read L.A. Confidential, David Walsh's books. I had prepared and prepared like it was a college exam, and walked into the room with 112 questions. And in a 2.5-hour interview, I asked most of those questions, or at least as many of those questions as I could, but I feel that he answered the questions in a way that he was ready. I didn't get all the questions asked, but I think the most important questions and the answers that people around the world have been waiting to hear were answered, and certainly answered. I can only say I was satisfied by the answers.
Would you characterize him as contrite?
You know what, Charlie? I choose not to characterize. I would rather people make their own decisions about whether he was contrite or not. I felt that he was thoughtful. I thought that he was serious. I thought that he certainly had prepared himself for this moment. I would say that he met the moment. And at the end of it, literally 2.5 hours, we both were pretty exhausted. And I would say I was satisfied.
Many people say, though, Oprah, you know, before you did the interview, there was a lot of talk that you were chosen because you would not go deep, you would not go hard. Did you have a strategy going in for how you would talk to him?
Oh yeah, we had a strategy and pretty much followed that strategy, certainly in the first hour and 20 minutes of the interview. And about an hour and 20 minutes in, we took a break, and Lance actually said, will there be a point where you're lighten up? He goes, what about the questions about my mom and how was my run today? So yeah, I was prepared with the strategy, but because he was so forthcoming, I think I went in prepared to have to dig and pull and reference, because I was literally in my head on page 76 of the reasoned decision. If he says this, then I'll go to that. And if he says this answer, I'll go to Seven Deadly Sins, page 114. I didn't have to do that because he was pretty forthcoming.
Oprah, I'm excited about seeing the entire interview. I don't know how you're going to cut down the whole 2.5 hours, because it sounds like there's a lot in there. But why do you think he wanted to do this now? What kind of pressure is he under?
Well, I'm just writing down. I'm not going to cut down the 2.5 hours. As a matter of fact, I wanted to tell you guys, we have decided, literally on the plane last night on the way back, because I didn't want to satellite the tapes. I didn't trust putting it up on the bird, so I hand carried them in my bag along with my dog food and dog leashes back to Harpo. We've decided that we are actually going to go for 2 nights, because impossible to try to cut 80 minutes out. As you all know, a 90-minute interview on TV is really only 65 minutes, and so we felt that to leave over half of this on the cutting room floor after millions of people have been waiting for years for many of these answers would not be the right thing to do.
And then that's very interesting. And so why do you think, Oprah, that he wanted to do this?
Because Oprah, it came together in really a week's time. That's what's so fascinating. Please tell people how you got this interview.
Okay, to answer Nora's question, I asked that question, and I'm not sure I still have the answer to that question, why he wanted to do it now. I specifically asked that question. I think he was just ready. I think the velocity of everything that's come at him in the past several months, and particularly in the past several weeks, he was just ready. How I got the interview, I had sent him an email a couple of months ago, just, hoping that he would talk to me. He emailed back and said he wasn't ready to talk, but that he would be in Hawaii over the holidays, and he knew that I had a place in Hawaii, and maybe we could get together for lunch. Okay, right, that's going to happen, I thought. So, sure, we're going to get together for lunch. During the holidays, I emailed and said, what about that lunch? As it turns out, he said I can't do it on these days, the days that I was available, because he had his kids. I had a bunch of my kids, girls from my school in Africa with me. I stayed over an extra 2 days in order to accommodate his schedule, and he came to visit me in Maui. He lives on another island, so he flew over.
And Oprah, you should say,
operation.
I was going to say, Oprah, you should say you cleared out the house.
Cleared out the house. I had guests in the house. Everybody has to leave. Go to the beach. Go to the beach. Go to the beach now. And stay there for at least 4 hours. So I had nobody in the house, including, people who usually are there for help, and even the people who do the lawn. I removed all those people. Had the person to go to the airport that normally doesn't pick me up at the airport, so that he wouldn't be recognized as being connected to me. I did all of that. Lance comes and says, where's everybody? I said, everybody away. He goes, but you didn't clear the road. There was a biker on the road.
I too sent him a telegram, and then sent him an email, by the way.
Yeah.
He answered yours. So back to this question of this man, how was he different than you expected, if at all? And what's your takeaway from this? And where do you put this in a career of extraordinary interviews?
Well, how is he different? I'll let you be the judge of that. In terms of my career, I think it's certainly the biggest interview I've ever done in terms of its exposure. I think back in 1993, of course, I did Michael Jackson live around the world. This is going to be live streamed around the world, as well as on OWN. If you can't find OWN on your station, you should go to Oprah.com, and we have a channel finder there for people who are still trying to find it. But because it's going to be around the world, and we believe that it should be around the world because so many people who don't have access to the OWN channel wanted to hear what he had to say. And I think the number of people who have exposure to it makes it the biggest interview I've ever done.